Albert Fox is a candidate for U.S. Senate from Florida. Albert is a graduate of the University of Maryland, is the founder and president of the Alliance for Responsible Cuba Policy Foundation, a nonprofit organization founded in 1998 to reestablish trade and diplomatic relations between the United States and Cuba. As a candidate for the U.S. Senate, Albert Fox Jr. seeks rapprochement with Cuba, transitioning to renewable sources and energy, and guaranteeing the civil rights of the LGBT community. Welcome, Albert. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Manuel, and thank you, Mika, for inviting me. With your permission, if I could take a few minutes to tell you something a little bit more about myself. And if it's all right with you, we can operate under the rules of the United States Senate, and that is that feel free to interrupt me and say anything, even if it's not germane to what I'm saying, and I'll be glad to try to answer it as best I can. I had, in my opinion, a very unique career. I never saw myself as someone in politics. I was 21 years old. And I was a pool hall bum that had no formal education. I didn't even know what a United States Senator was. And out of nowhere, blind luck, in a matter of 2 or 3 days, I find myself working in the office of a United States Senator at the time, George Smathers of Florida, at a very low level position, getting lunch for the secretaries, opening the mail, picking up the senator at the airport. But what I realized within a week, when I put on a tie and coat and walked in the quarters of the Capitol, you couldn't tell me apart from the person who had just graduated from Georgetown Law School, whose father was a major contributor to the senator. I was white. My last name is Fox, but actually my father is Italian, family's from Naples, Italy, and my mother, my grandmother was from Zaragoza, Spain, and she was an opera singer and performed in various countries. And in those days, of course, she traveled by boat. And she performed in Cuba for 5 years, which time my mother was born in Cuba. But my mother left Cuba when she was 9 months old and returned back to Cuba for the first time when she was 83 years old. So the next thing I know, 40 years went by, working in the Capitol and in and around the United States Senate. I formed a couple of small businesses. I had an opportunity to travel throughout South Africa. Was involved in a small way in Nelson Mandela's release. I was United States Commissioner on the Martin Luther King Jr. Federal Holiday Commission. Dr. King was a friend of mine. One of the great honors of my life was when I had the opportunity to take him on a tour of the United States Senate in 1966. And at that time, the only thing I knew about Dr. King was that he was a man of violence. He was a communist sympathizer, and he was, quote, an outside agitator. And I became fascinated with the man that I had just met. Senator Hart of Michigan arranged for me to take him on the tour of the Senate. And I was very puzzled and baffled by, and at that time, a good 50 members of the Senate thought of Dr. King what I just said he was: communist, sympathizer, man of violence, et cetera, et cetera. And what I find so ironic that today, I can't find one person who speaks ill of Dr. King. And personal comment, I find it, I get angry, as a matter of fact, when I hear people like Sean Hannity, and Newt Gingrich, and the governor of this state say that what is wrong with Black America today is that there is no Martin Luther King Jr. And I've researched everywhere I can. I can't find any comments when Dr. King was alive that Newt Gingrich was an admirer of Dr. King. So I decided to, talking with some friends of mine, the events of January the 6th at the Capitol were very personal for me. I happened to be watching them with my wife lifetime, and I was just shocked at what I saw. And I turned to my wife and I said, this was an inside job. 800 people didn't go through that window that everyone sees breaking in. This was an inside job, make no mistake about that. And so it coincided with some friends of mine had been talking about I should try to run for the Senate to use as a platform to discuss some issues that needed to be discussed, which my party is not discussing. And then the day after the insurrection in the Capitol, the young man that committed suicide, he was 51 years old, Howie Liebengood, the Capitol policeman, was very personal for me because I knew Howie since he was 10 years old. And so, after consultation with my wife, we decided to do this. And so I have been somewhat disappointed in my party in the so-called Democratic primary system. There are 6 lifelong Democrats running for this nomination, and they get no traction at all, either from the media or from our party. And the party has anointed Val Demings. They have given her $25 million, and she still polls 10 points or so behind Marco Rubio. So with that, just let me stop. I have some strong views about certain issues that if I'm asked, I'll be glad to share them with you. So thank you.
Thank you, Albert. Let's open up to see if you have a question. Raise your hand.
Hi, Al. It's great to have you here again, actually. Let me ask you a question about Cuba and one question about energy. You could argue that US-Cuba relations are at the worst point in recent history right now. Specifically, one of the toughest issues for Cuban families as a part of that is the difficult access to remittances. It's hard to send money to Cuba right now from the United States. What do you think the Senate could do, and what would you do in order to help Cuban families? And the second question about energy, renewable energies were a big part of the Build Back Better agenda that stalled in Congress. Any ideas on how this could be revived? Any suggestions how this could be done? Thank you.
Thank you, Johannes, for those 2 questions, and thank you as well. You've been in the trenches on this issue for, I don't know, maybe 20 years. So you can see how much progress we have made. I think that the first thing that I would do, if lucky enough to win this thing, is one, I think I understand, I know that I understand better than any of the candidates running. Not because I'm so smart, but I worked right on the Senate floor. I know how to start a filibuster, I know how to end a filibuster. And when it comes to the issue of Cuba, no senator pushes and does the things that need to be done. For example, if I get elected, I would be the only senator from Florida in 62 years that supports the removal of the embargo completely. And that's a big difference because a senator from Florida can make the difference for more than 20 or 30 other senators. But for example, excuse my allergies, the first thing that I would do, and I can accomplish this in 60 days or so, there's 100 senators, as everyone knows. My guess is that only 3 or 4 of them know that anything to do with Cuba regarding the United States Treasury Department and the Office of Foreign Assets Control is run out of Miami and not out of the Treasury Department in Washington, D.C. Why is that significant? The person that made that happen was former Senator Dennis DeConcini. And Senator DeConcini is prepared to make the statement at the right time that he truly regrets working with the late Boy Mascanosa and moving the Office of Foreign Assets Control from Washington, D.C. to Miami to manage Cuba policy. That is a complete waste of taxpayer money. And when you have a senator from Florida educating the other 99 senators, I don't even think that Senator Rubio knows that how it was done and the history, how it came about. And so that will force the Senate focus on that, to stop the appropriations for that, and that'll end that. Radio Marti, TV Marti, all those programs, USAID funding for regime change in Cuba. A senator from Florida can end all of those programs, stop the funding in 3-6 months. I'd bet my life on it. Okay, so, and I know how to make that happen if I have the Senate. Regarding the Build Back Better Bill and energy provision, it was a disaster from the beginning when it was proposed. Anyone who really knows how the Senate works knew, and I predicted in November, remember at the time we got to pass this by Christmas, that it was such a comprehensive package that in the history of the United States Senate, they have never passed such a package. We need to put it in pieces, energy piece, John Lewis voting rights piece, and take those up piecemeal. We'll win some, or we'll lose some, but that's a lot better process. One of the problems we have is that the majority leader of the Senate spends most of his time raising money for the party, which is one of the things that I want to do. There's just too damn much money in our political process today. Look at the money that they've raised for Valdez, $25 million, okay? And in my opinion, I don't think she can beat Marco Rubio. And so Senator McConnell, he spends all of his time as a mechanic moving the chess parts of how the Senate works, get the trains to run on time. And Senator McConnell is extremely knowledgeable about the machination of the United States Senate. He started his career as a Capitol policeman, okay, in 1967 and 62. He understands everything about the Capitol and the United States Senate. And that's all he does. Where my leader spends all of his time raising money and trying to pick candidates around the country to run, and that's how they came up with Val Demings, and they would say, you don't have to do anything, we'll raise all the money for you. And I don't think that's a good system. So I think we need to pick a party. They're kind of doing it now. And if you look at when they brought up the John Lewis voting rights bill several weeks ago, and then Senator Schumer, the majority leader, issued a statement and saying, well, the Republicans filibustered the bill and we had to bring it down. That is factually not correct. What happened 2 or 3 weeks ago is that the majority leader and the minority leader got together and said, I will call up the John Lewis voting rights as a separate package. You say this, I'll say that, Senator X will say this, Senator Y will say that, and you're not going to let us vote on it, so I'll bring the bill down. And this is very, I mean, it angers me. That's not a filibuster. That is not a filibuster. And it's been my party that has used the filibuster for good and bad. And we passed the Civil Rights Bill of 1965 because Dr. King got together with the majority leader at the time, Mike Mansfield, and they decided to have a filibuster. Long, complicated story, but the short version of the story is that for 88 straight days, the Senate was tied up in knots, 24/7. That's the filibuster. And then when they took the vote to end the filibuster, and at that time you needed 67 votes, not 60. You needed 6 to break a filibuster. Well, when they took the vote after 88 days, they didn't get 67. They didn't get 68. They got 72 votes. Okay. And what happens is, we had done this several weeks ago, around the clock, let the Republicans make their case. But a filibuster is hard work. You have to stay on the floor to protect it, make sure that there's something that's not slipped through the cracks. It is hard, demanding work. Senator Schumer has to be there. Democrats, they form a team. And the minute there's a crack in the Republicans, they want to take a break or they want to go to the bathroom. You say, no, but we're not taking a break. Keep going, make your case. And what would happen then is that the American people would start saying to their senator, what the hell is going on in the United States Senate? Oh, it's a bill about not letting the non-white people vote. I'm not sure. I don't have all the details. And then they start putting pressure on their Senate, okay? In this stuff, we got other things to do. And so there are ways to break the filibuster. And I know in our party, there's a lot of people say you got to get rid of it. I'm telling you now, the United States Senate is never going to get rid of the filibuster. We can tweak it a little bit, but we have to learn, and I know how to use it to our advantage. Okay. So I think hopefully that's answered your question, John.
Hello, Albert. My question is, how do you foresee this rapprochement with Cuba? It's not just removing the embargo, but what other steps? And currently, Cuban people are suffering a lot. A ticket to get out of Cuba, airplane to go from Cuba to Nicaragua or any other country is $4,900. As someone that wants to travel from here to Cuba, is just about that cost. I think there's mafias not only in Cuba but in the United States that make this happen. And this is not only with the airfare tickets, but it's with the telephone. Some families from here call to Cuba and they're paying $1 a minute. I took call to Peru for hours and I pay $1. So how can we understand? I think there's two mafias, one that operates from here in America and probably is integrated by Cubans too, because they handle that, and the other one that operates from Cuba. How can we explain $4,900 for an airfare ticket per person? What is your position of how to approach to relationships with Cuba? And is there any movement or something happening? I heard from Cubans saying that they're reopening the embassy in Cuba, that one that was closed by Trump, due to the bugging of the system, that they claim that there was some bugging of or noises or something that was inside the embassy.
I have all the answers to what you have proposed, but I think I want to make sure that while I'm extremely knowledgeable about Cubans, very passionate from my heart, but I don't want to be known as a Cuba candidate, because I know more about the immigration policy and the environmental policies here. So I want to say that. Specifically to the points that you raised, there's one of the great senators in terms of success was Russell Long of Louisiana, Huey Long's son, of the Long chairman of the Senate Finance Committee. And I remember him numerous occasions in the privacy of the cloakroom. He would say what I'm about to tell you, and I didn't really have a full understanding, but as time went on and I learned more about the Senate. And Senator Long always used to say this: protect me from my friends, because I know how to handle my enemies. It is our friends, Manuel, that keep this insane policy in place, because they just look the other way. They don't really fight like needs to be done, because, believe it or not, cottage industry, people make money. People that are opposed to the embargo towards Cuba make money off of that, okay? It's a money-making thing for them. And so it's nice to say that, but they really don't want the embargo to end. On the Cuba side, on the Cuba mafia, as we refer to them, their attitude is, you in the United States and the United States are the people that keep this embargo in place. So I'm desperate. I need money. So I'm going to charge you more than what it's the value is. And so that's that is. And so and the reason that the Biden administration now weaken these rules for visas to be granted more and putting staff at the American embassy, it wasn't for people that, like me and the people on my side of the fence that did this. This was done by Mario Diaz-Balart and Congressman Jimenez and Congresswoman Salazar, whatever the hell her name is. They went to the State Department and the White House because they were getting a lot of heat because they didn't work out. What they wanted to do was that policy was put in there by the Trump people. It was designed to squeeze the people of Cuba so desperately that they would rise up and take to the streets and overthrow the government. That's the motivation for putting it in. The CIA came up with this nonsense about hearing aid, hearing silence, or these sonic booms, and it's just nonsense. Absolute, totally fabricated story as an excuse to shut down the embassy. Well, those are the bad guys, so we know what they're doing. They're the enemy. We know what they do. Well, why didn't Joe Biden just continue with Barack Obama? Okay, so my frustration and my disappointment is not with Donald Trump. Most probably, no, he will be recorded as the worst president we've had. My disgust is with Joe Biden. Okay, Joe Biden, in less than 60 seconds, can take us back to the days of Barack Obama. All he has to do is this: pick up a pen, get a piece of paper, and write down these words. By this executive order, I am effectively rescinding all Donald Trump's executive orders that relate to U.S. Cuba policy, period, signed Joe Biden. And we immediately go back to the days of Barack Obama. And what was happening in the days of Barack Obama? The Cuban government liked it. The Cuban people liked it. The people in Miami liked it. The cruise line industry liked it. Corporate America liked it. Everybody liked it, except who? About 1,000 people in Miami, about 50 people in Tampa, and about 500 people in Union City, New Jersey. But these are the people with the money. Just like you hear all the time, oh, the Cuban American vote is so popular, it's so important, it's so significant. As goes the Cuban American vote, so goes the election. That is just absolute nonsense, okay? It's the Cuban money that's important. An exaggerated example of that is, I'm working with some friends of mine in the Jewish community in Miami. And they said, Albert, and I said, I'd like to get the Jewish vote. I have an excellent record, better than any of the other candidates in the support of Israel and the Jackson-Vanik Amendment going back to 1974. And he tells me, Albert, you don't want the Jewish vote because that's nothing. He says, what you want is the Jewish money. And that's precisely the same analogy that you can do to the Cuban vote. Okay, Joe Biden, they're obsessed. They were so obsessed that he only got 33% of the Cuban American vote in the last election. I had an argument with a friend of mine in the White House about this. So what do? They go out and find a Cuban American to make him the head of our party. The Cuban American has a disastrous position on U.S. Cuba policy. Okay? I mean, it's horrible, Manny Diaz's position on Cuba. But our party, your Democrats, is obsessed with this concept of a Cuban American vote. Okay, so Joe Biden got 33%, Hillary Clinton got 39-something%. Okay, no Democrat running statewide is ever going to get more than 42% of the Cuban American vote. Never happens. That is going to happen. Okay, I've told people when I go to Miami, I don't go to Versailles restaurant. Okay, I'm not seeking the Cuban American vote of that ilk because they're not ever going to vote for it. I don't go to the Bay of Pigs Memorial. I don't go to the Freedom Tower. Okay, what I want, the majority of every other Spanish-speaking ethnic group. That's what I want. And so there's this misconception that the Cuban American vote is so powerful because that makes a great story. So Joe Biden got 33% of the Cuban American vote, lost the state of Florida, and was elected president of the United States by 8 million votes. So you tell me how important is this so-called Cuban American vote that everybody needs, okay? So this is, again, it's just about money, Manuel. And it is, we're outraged at what Putin is doing to the Ukraine. And I got in trouble. I said this the other day to people, and I got pretty criticized for it. But I think that what the United States does to Cuba is equally immoral. I think to have a policy that says if you make the people suffer, they'll rise up and overthrow the government. I think that's an immoral policy. And more importantly, it hasn't worked. The Cuban government is stronger today. It has a grip over that society today than at any time in the last 62 years. Do not let anyone tell you. And all this supposed spontaneous uprising that took place in Cuba is absolute nonsense. That was all coordinated by the USAID and the CIA. And what did it accomplish? Nothing, except some people now in Cuba are going to go to jail because the Cuban government is investigating cell phone use. And if you had any contact, you're a Cuban in Cuba, and had any contact with the so-called movement out of Miami, okay, you're going to go to jail. And they're going to sentence you to jail, 20 years or so. And after you serve 7 or 6, they'll release you. That's been their pattern. Okay? So it's just a disgusting policy. You're absolutely right. On this end, we got this mafia, and then on the other end, you have the mafia. But the genesis, just remove the blockade and the embargo. And then you won't have these problems, okay? And I know people here in Tampa, okay, that publicly go to all these demonstrations, against the Cuban government in this community, and they go to Cuba every two months or so to get their medicine, their blood pressure medication, their diabetes medication. And I have heated arguments. I said, damn it, grow a pair of testicles and say that, okay? Oh, Albert, it's controversial, I love you, you're just a wonderful guy, but it's controversial. And so what happens is we have a merry-go-round. We just go round, round, round. So it's, the short answer is the America that I know, the America that I believe in, is better than having this immoral policy towards Cuba.
What are your strategies to increase the Democrat image? I mean, I walk around and I tell people I'm a Democrat and they all cringe. And I live in a very Republican place. I'm afraid to put a sign in front of my house because they are so obnoxious. So do you have a way to come up to combat this mentality? And how can we increase our democratic image to win elections?
Jackie, that's the question of the century. And I have the answer to it. We in the Democratic Party have to immediately stop allowing the Republican Party to frame all the debates. They frame the Democratic Party that I know. I'm a John Kennedy Democrat, Stu Jackson. For those of you in Florida, Reuben Askew, Democrat, Lawton Child, Democrat, okay? And to a large extent, he's not Democrat, Bernie Sanders. I agree with Bernie Sanders, good 60, 70% of the time. And I was a progressive before some of these progressives were born. But we've allowed the Republican Party to frame the debate that we're the party of no police, no law and order, socialism for communism, giveaway. And that's just not the case. I mean, the minute we came up with this, the defund the police, that has hurt us. The poorest communities in our country, in our state, they need law enforcement better than the richest community. So it is insane to say we defund the police. And so when people ask me, do you support the Black Lives Matter movement? I say, yes, I do. And then there's silence. I don't say anything else. And then I'm told, the person in Jacksonville told me, so you mean you support the violence and the looting of these visitors? I said, you didn't ask me that. You asked me, do Black Lives Matter? And the answer to that question is yes. Now, if you want to know my position on looting of private property, the answer to that is no, I don't support that. Okay, but yet that's the way this has been framed, and our, like I said, a lot of this is our fault. Okay, we allow these things to happen, and then another thing that we do, Democratic Party, is that we fight our battles in public. We take each other on in public. You don't take on your own team in public. You take on your own team in private, and that's ironically enough, that's what's destroying the Republican Party now for the first time. We don't have to worry about Donald. Donald Trump's career is over. He is finished. He will never run for any office again. Write it down. I know a lot of people disagree with that. And we keep focusing on Donald Trump. Donald Trump has 20% or so of the Republican Party in his pocket. These people will walk through fire for him. That's a fact. So you say, well, why doesn't the other 75% of the Republican Party stand up and challenge him? Because they're afraid to. Because Donald Trump will go to the 25% and say, let's find a candidate to run against that person. Okay. But the Mitch McConnells of the world and that's Republican Party, they're going to do everything they can to make sure. Just listen how the governor of this state talks, Ron DeSantis, now about Donald Trump. They parse their words very carefully. And so we need to step up more. We need to have our ideas articulated. We need to stop fighting in public and eating our own, okay? And the other thing that we need to do is we need to get smart that some issues are not winnable at this point in time, like the Build Back Better bill. The minute that was proposed, I told everyone, it is never going to pass. That comprehensive, the United States Senate is called the greatest deliberative body for a reason, okay? For a reason, and it's not ever going to pass anything of that magnitude that includes. So we have made tactical error And among ourselves, we need to fix these things. And you're right. I have two people in Key West that have told me that they were leaving the Democratic Party. They were going to register independent. I said, yeah, you can't do that. That's just a waste of it. Well, we'll wait till after this primary election so we can vote for you, but we're leaving the Democratic Party. That is very troubling to me, okay? It really is. And so we need to look. We have the Democratic Party, we have cabals. We have a cabal in Tampa, we've got one in Miami, we've got one in Jacksonville, we've got one in Washington, D.C. And this cabal, they make all the decisions, but they're mainly interested in their own turf. And I get in trouble when I say this. We have to, Nancy Pelosi has to stop sending out these massive fundraising emails across America. It does not help. Her day is gone. Hillary Clinton's day is gone. Alex Singh's day here in Florida is gone. We need to bring new people in to our party, young people into our party. And instead of spending $25 million on Val Demings, which I think is going to be wasted, we ought to be identifying people at the local level to run for school board and a state house race. That's where our emphasis is. And when in this state, when you have in the past year thousands more registered Republicans than Democrats, there's something dramatically wrong with this, with our policy and our views getting forward. So like I said, I blame a lot of this on ourselves. We've listened to these old guards, these cabals. The primary race that I'm in is a classic example. The reason we came up with this primary system was to get the decision-making out of the smoke-filled room by a bunch of men drinking bourbon and smoking cigars. Well, now the primary system is just out in the open. We have a primary system. We have, I think, some good candidates. I think we do. We have some young people. And the purpose was to get out and let the electorate see them and hear from them. And then let Democrats decide, okay, we want this person to be the nominee of our party, okay? And then all the people that participated in that race would band together and join the party. I'm not voting for Val Demings if she wins this, and I don't. I'm saying it now. She can help this a lot by stop saying that she's running against Marco Rubio. She is not running against Marco Rubio. The National Democratic Party, the State Democratic Party uses Marco Rubio's notoriety to raise money across America. That's where this 25 million came from. And then Val Demings is using that money to suppress me and the other 6 Democratic candidates. And I think that's wrong.
My question to you is actually 2 questions too. On your campaign website homepage, you affirm a commitment to respect civil rights for all, universal health care for all, and the Second Amendment. And then continues saying, Albert Fox understands the present and strongly commits to a better future through smart cities, climate science, and enlightened capitalism, close quotes. Then under the tab mission, there are a few words about US relations with Cuba on your website, your support for climate science, healthcare for all, and civil rights, but you don't elaborate on your position in regards to the Second Amendment. Can you talk about this position you have as a candidate for the US Senate? And also then please explain what you mean by enlightened capitalism.
I support the Second Amendment. No one running statewide in the state of Florida that has a position to repeal the Second Amendment has a chance of winning this election. And just go talk to Barry Sanders about that. Because you support the Second Amendment does not mean that you do not support appropriate gun control laws, which I do, okay? I think that we need to tighten these background checks severely. I think we got to stop these sales in the parking lot of a gun show with no background checks, okay? Come down very hard on those things, make the penalties. If you sell an illegal weapon to someone else and you get caught, the penalties are not severe. So I support very severe penalties on those sorts of things. I also don't think that you need these kind of weapons that were made for military and combat, okay, for everybody running out around town with them I would be opposed to that. Enlightened capitalism, it means greed is not good. I'm a capitalist. I formed 2 small business, but greed is not capitalism. And you look what's happening now with the price of gas. Everybody talks about the price of gas, and the price of gas, when you in a gas station have an underground tank with 100,000 gallons, whatever the number is, and they pay for that gas. They've already paid for that. So the proprietor knows that he's going to sell it for $2.50 for the sake of this argument at a gallon, and he's going to make a profit. Now all of a sudden, a reason comes up. Well, and Joe Biden has about as much to do with setting a gallon of oil than you and I do. This is controlled by these oil-producing nations, OPEC. They set the price, and it fluctuates. You look at the last 50 years. So all of this is gouging. This is not capitalism. What these station owners are doing, they've already paid for the gas. An example I gave you, $2.50, and they're going to make a profit. Now they're going to charge you $4. That's just all greed, and that's what I mean. And I'm opposed to that. When you have a hurricane in our state, what do some of these motels do in the grocery stores and the gas? They immediately start jacking up the price. That's not capitalism, okay? That's gouging and greed, and that's what I mean by enlightened capitalism.
This is about renewable energy and your position on it, being this is the Sunshine State, and the powers that be have been very supportive of the oil industry, including threatening to give permissions or permits to drill in the Gulf along our coast. What is your position on those, and also on light rail in Florida?
Well, obviously I'm opposed to drilling for oil in the Gulf, but we are, rightly or wrongly, or good or bad, we are dependent on oil, and we in the United States, we have more oil in Texas and Oklahoma than Saudi Arabia has. There's no question of it. So why do we go to Saudi Arabia to get this oil? Money, greed, capitalism gone muck. It is cheaper for ExxonMobil to invest with the Saudis to get the oil out of the Saudi ground and put it on a tank and bring it to the United States. Cheaper to do that than to get it right here. And so we need to come up with a very enlightened plan to how to wean ourselves off of this dependency, not just on fossil fuels, but fossil fuels from other parts of the world. It is laughable that the Biden administration sent emissaries to Venezuela last week to meet with the Maduro government, which they claim is not the legitimate government. They say that Maduro, whatever that man's name is, he's the real president of Venezuela, which is nonsense. So we're going now to Venezuela with hat in hand, who has one of the largest oil reserves in the world. A lot of people don't know that Venezuela has more oil than Saudi Arabia. So we're going there now to cut a deal with them. That's just bad policy, okay? So I don't oppose drilling for oil in Anwar in Alaska, and I'm strongly against that. But there are areas in America where to wean ourselves off the dependency on foreign oil, let's do it here, and that'll make us stronger, and at the same time, to wean ourselves totally off into other forms of energy, solar, for example, and wind, and other forms of energy. But we got to stop talking about it, and we got to start doing something about it, okay? When Hillary Clinton went to West Virginia to win the primary and said, I'm going to put all you coal miners out of business. It's a cute statement and funny, but the only thing she did there was that the governor of West Virginia, who was a Democrat, switched parties to the Republican Party. Okay, and you just don't do that. You don't say that's just bad policy. And what we need to do is to get all these experts, and that would come within the next 5 years. We have to have a goal to wean ourselves off of fossil fuels. But drilling for oil in the Gulf, no, I'd be against that, because there are a lot of other places that we can go. Okay, and to tie in just the relationship with Cuba, Cuba has, in their part of the Gulf of Mexico, They have massive oil reserves, but drilling for oil is very, very expensive. And the leader in deep water oil drilling is the United States. And it is insane from an environmental point of view for the United States not to work cooperatively with Cuba on drilling for oil in Cuba's territorial waters. Because if they go forward, and we've been able successfully to put pressure on the Italians and the Spaniards to stop drilling for oil in Cuba's waters. But if the day comes where they can work out their finances and they do it, and they have a BP oil spill accident, it is very likely that all that stuff, that the damage is going to end up in Key West, the oil slicks and the fishing and our coastal water. So it is beyond explanation for me. And I negotiated. I had an idea. The only memorandum of understanding that exists between Havana Aquarium and the Tampa Aquarium. It was an idea I had, and I'm not a biologist, but all I heard was that Cuba's coral reefs are pristine, and the United States coral reefs in the southern part of our state are all dying, and no one knows why. And I thought, well, hell, why don't let the Cubans and the American biologists get together, and maybe they can solve a problem. Well, they love the idea. They do it and work together. And Trump is kind of try to poo-poo that, and Biden's done along with it as well. So the short answer is we have to wean ourselves off fossil fuels, but we have to have a plan to do it because we can't do it by just talking about it. That ain't gonna happen.
Thank you, Albert. If you would like to say some final words, you can wrap up.
Thank you, Mika, for having me. And all I ask all of you is just to look at my record and make an informed decision. Thank you.